everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. Boy, is there more to talk about in regards to Rosh Hashana and all the crazy things that are happening this month. And this is just going to be a big overview of everything that we've talked about, plus two new things. And I'm going to talk about the two new things first, and then I'm just going to do a grand overview from the time that there was the meteor over Utah back last month up until now. Um, I'm not saying that anything is going to happen on Rosh Hashanah. I'm not. Um, I'm not saying that there's going to be Adam on Yamin or anything else. I don't know. You come to your own conclusion. Um, None of us can really say, can we? All we can do is like look at what's happening in the world in some of these coincidences and speculate, because speculating is the worst thing in the world. By the way, which is weird because we just read from Millennial Messiah and Bruce R. McConkie said that it was okay to speculate. I think people like get everything all get all frustrated because like they don't understand the difference of there's two types of speculating. There's the type where you're putting things together, it's not really solid, and then you act on it, and that's obviously bad. But the other one is just thinking out loud and considering possibilities. And there's nothing wrong with that. Every time that someone's like, oh, I don't know about this speculation, it's not very helpful. Well, you know what? It's called thinking. And it's called thinking about possibilities. As long as people don't act on things, it doesn't hurt to just think, to observe things that are happening. It's like, it's the silliest thing. I don't understand it. Okay, so enough of that. Okay, so if you're new, Rosh Hashanah is coming up. It's the Jewish New Year. This is when they changed the date, okay? And it's one of the two holiest days of the year in Judaism. It is, it's a day when, well, I'm not going to do a rehash of Rosh Hashanah. Just go watch my previous videos. But it's an important day. And to sum it up, this one is particularly important because it's going to be the end of this sabbatical year. We're going to be moving into the next day of years. Every 7 years is a sabbatical year. It's called a Shemitah. Okay. And so as we see all these things happening in the world, as we see all these things happening in the church, we just kind of wonder about some of these days. The reason why is because in our church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, there's things that happen on these days, like when Joseph Smith received the gold plates on Rosh Hashanah, and also when Elijah came to the Kirtland Temple on First Fruits, or Bikurim. And there's more, okay? So there's still relevant in some way. The Lord still sees them as appointed times, or moedim, as it's called in the Mishnah. So that's why they're still significant. That's why I think we would do well to just maybe kind of just pay attention. So this is the next one that's up, Rosh Hashanah, and it's going to be next Monday. Or sorry, I'm looking at August. It's going to be, no, yeah, it is. It is next Monday, September the 26th, right here, Rosh Hashanah. Okay. Okay, so one thing that I can't believe I didn't bring up before. Okay, so in Judaism, Saturday is the Sabbath, right? Saturday is the Sabbath. So from a Jewish point of view, when you're looking at the week of years, every Shemitah, it would correspond to Saturday, right? Now, in the Christian world, we changed it. It's been changed to Sunday, and that's the day that we observe as the Sabbath because it commemorates when Christ was resurrected. That was the day that he was resurrected on. And so what's interesting is that if we look at the Shemitahs in that way, then really this month or this year right now, this is a Shemitah according to like if this Jewish year was a Saturday, we're going to be moving into a Sunday the next year, so to speak. Does that make sense? So it could very well be that this next year is maybe even more significant than we realize. If you think of it that way, we're moving into the Sunday of years, and that would be a good year for things to happen, right? And there's some people that believe that next year is also a Jubilee. I haven't really been able to pin that down, but multiple people think that, so yeah, maybe. Okay, So, interesting things have been happening that seem to point to this Rosh Hashanah. And I just found a couple new things which I'm about to say. First, let's just do a quick little review, really quick, just a little summary. We had the meteor on the 13th of August, and this was the start of a 7-day, or I don't know how do you describe it. Let me just read the thing. Okay, so you see here on the calendar it says Shabbat Nachamu. Well, Shabbat Nachamu is it says it takes its name from the Haftarah from Isaiah in the book of Isaiah, chapter 40, verses 1 through 26. That speaks of comforting the Jewish people during their suffering. It is the first of 7 Haftarahs of consolation leading up to the holiday of Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. Okay, so it's a series of 7 haftarahs, the first in that series leading up to Rosh Hashanah. And that is the exact day that there was a meteor over Utah. Okay. I'm going to go into the details, but I'm going to save that for later. I'm just doing the summary right now. So you have this that points to Rosh Hashanah. You have the explosion on the sun, a huge CME that's going to be studied for years that happened exactly 3 weeks before Rosh Hashanah. We had just a couple days ago the largest earthquake of the year, or at least it tied with the largest earthquake of the year. This was in Mexico, and it was on the 19th. By the way, it was the 23rd of Elul, which in the Hebrew calendar, that's the day that that thing happened in 2011 in New York City that changed the world. Okay, so on that day on the Hebrew calendar, there was a huge earthquake, a twin earthquake, a twin with the one that happened 9 days before on the 10th, which was one day after President Nelson's birthday, which made him the oldest prophet or apostle of this dispensation, which was before the Queen passed away on the 8th, which paved the way for us to have a king. A king. For the first time in our lives, a king in the UK. Which that by itself isn't so significant as what I think the symbolism is that everybody now has king, the imagery of a king on the brain, right? And we know that Christ is coming and he will be the king of the world. Check out my last video. We talked about Adam on Diamond and how that seems to be related to Rosh Hashanah, possibly. Because Rosh Hashanah is a coronation event. It's when the Jews crown God as their king. It's kind of like the same way like when in General Conference when we sustain our leaders. That's basically how they view Rosh Hashanah. It's not that they're crowning God. It's like they're sustaining. They're voting for themselves to follow God and show that support and view him as king. Interesting. So okay, so what are we going to add to this list? Well, let me show you. Jupiter. Now, I have to give credit to a couple people because I don't know that I would have known this if it wasn't for these comments. Thank you, B. Brown. Sorry, B. Brown, who says, also on the 27th, Jupiter at opposition and the closest it's been to Earth in 70 years. And then Kathy Douglas says, September 26th, this year is the opposition of Jupiter. The largest planet will take center stage in the sky. And there may have been a couple emails too. Sorry, I didn't think about pulling that up, but thank you as well. Okay, so thank all of you. Okay, so first we're going to look at the National Catholic Register. This Sunday night, see Jupiter's moons and see church history. There's one thing in here that I wanted to highlight, not really anything else. It says on Sunday night, September 25th, and early Monday morning, September 26th, Jupiter will be close to Earth. In fact, it'll be the closest to Earth that it's been. Now, I've seen two different numbers, okay, and I'm going to show you in these articles. I've seen 59 years, and I've also seen 70 years. I'll show you. Okay, I'll get to that in just a second. But look at these dates. Sunday night, September 25th. Sunday night, September 25th. If you understand how Jewish days work, the day starts at sundown. So, on the 25th of September, at sundown, that begins Rosh Hashanah. And at that very same time is when Jupiter is the closest to the Earth. Okay? That's the very same time that Jupiter is the closest to the Earth. Why does that matter? Who cares about Jupiter? Well, Jupiter is known, okay, it takes its name from the Roman god Jupiter, which in turn is kind of like it descends from the Greek Zeus, so it's basically the same. But I'm going to focus on Jupiter because that's the actual name of the planet. And Jupiter is, I'm just going to read some stuff here from Wikipedia. I don't need to do a deep dive into this. He is the sky god, and he is the god of the sky and thunder, and the king of the gods. He is the top, right? In ancient Roman religion and mythology, Jupiter was the chief deity of Roman state religion. Okay, now I don't think I need to make much of a case that Jupiter is the king of planets. It's the largest planet in our solar system. Everybody knows that, right? In fact, let me pull this up. Jupiter, Wikipedia, just so we can look at it. I've heard people say that I tried to find some article that kind of like substantiated this, but people talk about how Jupiter may represent Jesus Christ. They point to the red storm, the eye of the storm right here, how that kind of corresponds to Christ. Excuse me, being his injury on his torso when he was stabbed by the Roman soldier, right? I don't know, so much about that. If you guys have, sources, feel free to send them to me or whatever. But there's no doubt that it's the largest planet in the solar system. Okay, there's no doubt about that. If there was a king of planets in our solar system, it would be Jupiter because of its size. Okay, so going back to Jupiter mythology, so he's the king of the gods, right? There's a few more things. Okay, a dominant line of scholarship has held that Rome lacked a body of myths in its earliest period, or that this original mythology has been irrecoverably obscured by the influence of the Greek narrative tradition. After the influence of Greek culture on Roman culture, Latin literature and iconography reinterpreted the myths of Zeus in depictions and narratives of Jupiter. In the legendary history of Rome, Jupiter is often connected to kings and kingship. Of course. Of course. Let's see. I can't remember if I had one more thing here or not. No, I guess not. All right. So, and then if we look at Judaism, all right, I'm looking at Jewish astrology. And I'm not saying that this is something that we as members of the church adhere to at all. Okay, I don't want anyone to think that I think that Judaism is the same as our church. I know it's not. I know that they've added a lot of things, but there's also a lot that they do know that I think is true. Somebody had made a comment about how the Talmud nullified the law of Moses and said that I was saying that right now them as an Old Testament people are the exact same as before, and of course that's not true. Like I wasn't saying that like, oh, they're doing it the right way. But as far as like the Talmud goes, that's one of their books. It goes along with the Mishnah. I'm gonna do another video because for some reason on this channel, occasionally you have a couple people that'll pop up, rear their ugly heads, and say bad things about Jews, or they'll be like kind of like antagonistic toward Jews, which is bizarre because if you're a member of the church, like, have you read the Book of Mormon and what it says about Jews in there? I understand the whole thing with rabbinical Judaism and these other I wouldn't call them books of scripture, but these like commentaries, like the both of the Talmuds. There's the Babylonian and the Jerusalem Talmud. There's the Mishnah, which we don't have and we don't like recognize, at least at this time. It's the oral Torah. They have Kabbalah. They have the Midrash. They have all these different things. But I'm going to do a video showing you that in General Conference, the Talmud has been quoted a number of times. So, no, yeah, they missed the mark with Christ, and they've added a bunch of other things, probably including this astrology. I don't know. But I think there's also a lot that they still have. They're covenant people of the Lord. They're not all just like completely lost in the sauce. So, just some of you people, seriously. Okay, to each hour of the day, this is according to Jewish astrology, to each hour of the day and night is assigned one of the 7 planets or spheres, uh, which same planet governs the world during that hour. The names of these planets are Saturn, Venus, Jupiter, Mercury, Mars, Moon, and the Sun. So in Jewish astrology, those are the 7 planets. It's interesting that they consider the Sun and the Moon as part of these planets, right? But Jupiter, the name of Jupiter is Tzedek. Okay, Tzedek. That's the Hebrew name for Jupiter. Tzedek is interesting because Tzedek means essentially justice. Okay, this is from my.christian.homestead. Tzedek, the Jewish value of justice. So you think about Christ as the chief judge, right? He is the judge. He became our judge when he performed the atonement. So anyway, I just wanted to show you that, which is interesting because, that goes along with Christ. Tzedek, this is on Chabad.org. Tzedek, or justice, is a key word in the book of Devarim, most famously in this verse. So it means justice. That's all I have that up for. Okay, so later, there's something interesting in the way that they view Jupiter. So each one, according to them, has a meaning. They have those persons born under this star will become both prudent and wise. Like, of course, that's not part of our church. But the way that they view things is significant because the Lord can work with that. He can be like, oh, my covenant people, this is how they view this. This is how they view that. This is their tradition. Some of it's pure. Some of it's been mixed in with, the philosophies of men. But Jupiter, it says, awakens probity and repentance and goodwill and love, as well as every good virtue, while bringing, now thinking about the millennium at this part, while bringing an end to wars and hostility and conflict, and allowing for the increase of the earth's fruits. Its influences are utterly good. Does that not sound like Christ and the second coming and the millennium? It does to me. Tzedek, the judge, okay, bringing an end to wars, conflict, hostility, and the earth's fruit increasing. The earth is going to become a paradisiacal world. So with how they view Jupiter and how the rest of the world views Jupiter and the prominence of Jupiter, I think it makes it all the more significant what's happening here, that this planet that has these different things associated with it is going to be the closest to Earth right when Rosh Hashana starts, Sunday night. Seriously, this is what you call signs and wonders in the heaven. We had the meteor, we had the sun that exploded, or at least they didn't explode. They had a large explosion at CME. We have Jupiter. We have 3 heavenly signs, all pointing to Rosh Hashanah. All of them are. The meteor started the 7 Haftarah countdown. The sun explosion happened exactly 3 weeks before Rosh Hashanah. Jupiter will be at its closest right as Rosh Hashanah begins. Seriously. Okay, so look at this. Jupiter to reach closest distance to Earth in decades next week. This is channel 4, NBCLosAngeles.com. Okay, Jupiter will reach so-called opposition that night, when it will rise east as the sun sets in the west. That's opposition. Okay, placing the planet and the sun on opposite sides of the Earth, which that's kind of interesting because it kind of puts us in the middle of these two big governing things. Not that like scripturally Jupiter governs anything, but because like we read about the moon and the sun being the things that govern this Earth, but you have the two largest celestial bodies in our solar system on either side of the Earth. Okay, so that kind of like paints kind of a picture, doesn't it? Um, you think about like how during the or no, sorry, not during the millennium, but during the Earth becomes a celestial world, there will be no night because there will always be light, right? In the same way, not that that's going to happen on Rosh Hashanah, but you have like what Earth is surrounded by these two big bodies in our solar system. Okay, how often does Jupiter reach opposition? Jupiter's opposition occurs every 13 months, which that's interesting, making the planet appear larger and brighter than any other time of the year. Jupiter will make its closest approach to Earth in the last 59 years on Monday. Now 13 is interesting because really, when you think about it, there are 13 tribes. There's 13. Okay. When we talk about land, Israel, there's 12. When you talk about Jacob's sons, there are 12 sons. But if you were to take everybody in the church and have them all line up according to their patriarchal blessing and what tribe has been declared, you would have 13 groups. Actually, technically, you would have 14 because some people are just strictly all it says in their patriarchal blessing is that they're they're adopted into Abraham's family. But putting that aside, there's 13 groups. You get what I'm saying? So, anyway, 59 years. It says, it is rare for Jupiter's closest approach to coincide with opposition, which means viewing will be spectacular this year. So, excuse me. Rare things are happening, and it coincides with Rosh Hashanah. Not only is it going to be the closest in 59 years, it is going to be happening while opposition is occurring, which makes it so that the viewing will be spectacular. And I actually, before I even saw any of this, like this was like maybe last week sometime. I saw a star as me and my wife were driving at night, and I was like, "Whoa, that's like really bright." And then I took out my Google Sky Map with my phone, and it was, oh, that's Jupiter. If you haven't looked outside and seen it, it is really bright right now. It is incredibly bright. So, okay, so there's that. Now, according to India Today, I guess I'll give more credit to the local news, but because I don't know India Today, but India Today says Jupiter is coming, largest planet in solar system to be closest to Earth in 70 years. So I don't know why there's a discrepancy between what they're reporting and others are reporting, but that's just something to keep in mind. And then this is interesting engineering. Now look at, okay, there can't be enough. NASA's planetary defense spacecraft, DART, will crash into an asteroid this Monday. Here's how to watch it live. So, I didn't highlight anything on this one. I can't remember if this one had anything to do with Jupiter. Yeah, okay. Well, let me do a word search. The spacecraft captured an important image of Jupiter as it approached its target asteroid. So this thing is like in the vicinity of Jupiter. And when is it going to crash? It's going to crash on Rosh Hashanah. It's going to crash on Rosh Hashanah. Because it just has to. Of course, that's the day. That's just how it worked out, right? And I could get into secret combination stuff with this because we've talked in the members only about what appears to be attempts by modern day Gadian robbers to possibly do things against celestial objects, but maybe I'll do a video about this later, maybe for members only. But anyway, so this is happening too. So not only is it going to be opposition and Jupiter as at its closest in 59 or 70 years, but this spacecraft, this planetary defense spacecraft DART, will crash into an asteroid on that same day. On that same day, of course. Okay, now let's switch gears. Let's talk about Russia. What's happening with Russia? Because it looks like there's a connection possibly between what's happening in Russia and Rosh Hashana. Okay, so this is New York Times, and it says President Vladimir V. Putin of Russia accelerated his war effort in Ukraine on Wednesday, announcing a new campaign that would call up roughly 300,000, that's a third of a million, by the way, reservists to the military, while also directly challenging the West over its support for Ukraine with a veiled threat of using nuclear weapons. I do find it concerning that and this has started since like the very beginning of the conflict. Even before, I think, before the conflict, there was like talk of using nuclear weapons. And the more and more that it's talked about, the more and more I get the feeling that maybe this isn't a joke and or a bluff, you know. So this talk, he was supposed to speak yesterday, but didn't, and then he spoke today. So this is what he's saying today. In a rare address to the nation, Mr. Putin stopped short of declaring a full national draft, but instead called for a partial mobilization of people with military experience. So that sucks because I guess that means veterans, hopefully not veterans that have disability like me. Though Moscow's troops have recently suffered humiliating losses on the battlefield, he said that Russia's goals in Ukraine had not changed and that the move was, quote, necessary and urgent because the West had crossed all lines by providing sophisticated weapons to Ukraine. I wish I had the big picture and I could like really analyze this and like understand this more completely. I know that there's different ways to view this conflict. I am aware of the secret combination component of it, but it's beyond the scope really of this channel. And even if don't worry, I'm getting to the part where this is related to Rosh Hashanah. Just hang in there. Okay, Mr. Putin accused the United States and Europe of engaging in quote-unquote nuclear blackmail against his country and warned that Russia had, quote, lots of weapons of its own. Quote, to those who allow themselves such statements about Russia, I want to remind you that our country also has various means of destruction, and some components are more modern than those of the NATO countries, he said. And then he continues, if the territorial integrity of our country is threatened, we will certainly use all the means at our disposal to protect Russia and our people. This is not a bluff. And I would probably take that seriously. In announcing a call up for soldiers, Mr. Putin was also responding to those in Russia who support the war but have criticized the Kremlin for not devoting the resources and personnel necessary to wage an all-out fight. Mr. Putin had previously avoided conscription in an effort to keep the war's hardships as distant as possible from ordinary Russians, but the recent battlefield setbacks and the drumbeat from pro-war nationalists for a more robust effort apparently changed the calculation. In a subsequent speech, Russia's defense minister Sergei K. Shoigu put the number of new call-ups at 300,000 people, all of them with some military experience. The mobilization makes it mandatory by law for reservists who are officially called up to report for duty or face fines or charges. Mr. Shoigu said that students would not be called up to fight and that conscripts would not be sent to the the quote-unquote special operations zone, the term the Kremlin uses to refer to the war, though observers were skeptical of that claim. Okay, so that is part of it. Okay, this is from his speech today that everybody was waiting for yesterday, but there's more. There's more. This is still from New York Times. After Russia's stunning retreat from northeastern Ukraine earlier this month, Western officials puzzled over what President Vladimir V. Putin, seemingly backed into a corner, might do next. And you know that whenever you have anybody backed into a corner, that's sometimes like the most dangerous time, because it's like they have to like give it all that they got to get out of the corner. In the space of 36 hours on Monday and Tuesday, the Kremlin delivered its answer in a tightly choreographed display in Russia's state news media. 4 Ukrainian regions occupied virtually in whole or in part by Russia would hold referendums on joining Russia, a move widely seen as a prelude to annexation of those territories by Russia and a potential escalation of the war. So I should have pulled this up. BBC referendum. I was going over this. I did a video last night. Ukraine on my other channel. Watch for the signs. And maybe let's look at this one. And I was going over this map right here. It shows you the areas. Please. Here we are. Okay, so these are the 4 areas. So in the solid red, those are areas of Russian military control. You have Luhansk, which is virtually 100% in their control. Donetsk, which is about half in their control. Zaporizhzhia, which is a little bit more than half. And then it seems like all of Kherson, except for maybe this little part right here, is in Russian control. And so what's happening, okay, here's the rest of Ukraine. So it's really just like kind of a small area. They already took Crimea in 2014, and now what they say is happening is that the leaders of these 4 areas are wanting to do a referendum and be annexed by Russia. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. These 4 areas. Okay. Let's see. 4 Ukrainian regions occupied virtually. Okay, wait, I already read that. But Ukraine's surprise battlefield gains this month forced Putin's hand, analysts said. Yeah, because there was the retreat and stuff. Dmitry Medvedev, the former Russian president and the vice chairman for Mr. Putin's Security Council, posted on Telegram that the referendum had, quote, huge significance because the Kremlin would consider an attack on them tantamount to an attack on Russian territory. You see what I'm saying? So essentially, after the annexation, they would be like, "Oh, well, this is Russia now. What, you're attacking Russia?" Okay, continuing, Medvedev says, encroaching on the territory of Russia is a crime, the commission of which allows you to use all the forces of self-defense. Annexing territory is a precedent Mr. Putin set with Crimea in 2014, which came after a referendum that was widely dismissed as a sham in the West, but that Mr. Putin had used to justify his threat that he was ready for all-out war if Ukraine sought to retake the peninsula by force. I mean, look, West, you can view it as a sham, but that's what actually happened. They're still there, right? So, okay, now look at this. On Monday, Russia's propaganda apparatus launched what appeared to be a scripted display meant to show that the upcoming referendum stemmed from a grassroots desire by the residents of 4 regions in eastern and southern Ukraine to join Russia. By Tuesday afternoon, the occupation authorities of all 4 regions had announced that the referendums would start on Friday and last 5 days. Start on Friday, last 5 days. So where would that take us? So here's Friday. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It would end, I guess, on the last day of Rosh Hashanah. There's 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. So by the end of Rosh Hashanah, uh, this referendum is supposed to be complete. You guys, the timing. Why are all these things pointing to Rosh Hashanah? Why? Of course, there's going to be some person that's like, it's just coincidence. You're looking too much into it. Okay, that's fine. For everybody else, why do you think that this is? You can't ignore it, can you? Can you just ignore it? I don't think you can. On social media, Russian cheerleaders of the war, who've been criticizing the Kremlin for not being aggressive enough in Ukraine, celebrated the developments as a possible turning point. So they're calling what's supposed to be complete by the end of Rosh Hashanah a turning point. I really don't know what the prospects are for World War III coming out of this. I don't know, but there's a lot of scary things being said, right? And I don't mean to panic you. I don't think that you should panic, even if World War III. People have lived through World War II and World War I. Okay, that's not to be naive of all the suffering that did take place, but people have survived. Especially like think of people that didn't go to war that were living in the United States. Like, yes, it was rough, but people were still able to survive. Just have hope, and we have a bright future. But there's probably going to be some obstacles that come in our way. But all this talk about nuclear, like using nuclear weapons, that would just be mind blowing. I know that they've been concerned, like Ukraine has said that they're concerned that Russia has come really close to hitting a nuclear power plant in Ukraine, and I think it's the largest one in Europe. I'm not sure, but just recently there was a missile that hit near there, and there was like a crater, and it was only something like 200 or 300 meters. I think it was like 300 meters away from the power plant, and so the idea is they're saying that Russia may hit that and then say that it's an accident, but therefore basically cause like not a nuclear explosion, but something similar to Chernobyl, where you'd have this nuclear disaster as far as like radiation goes. So I guess there's been that concern, but it seems like we are getting to this turning point because Ukraine has made the gains that they have in the war. And it seems like Russia is really determined to get what they want. I'm still kind of surprised that they weren't able to take the whole country the same way that we did Iraq and Afghanistan. I thought that that's what they were capable of. So I don't know. I don't know if they just they kind of overestimated what they were able to do. In the early part of the war, it seemed like what they wanted to do was take the entire country. And I don't know. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens. I don't know if this could in any way turn into the war of Gog and Magog. If it becomes a world war, I suppose it could. Because a world war would involve a lot of countries, and we would just have to see. We would just have to see what happens. So anyway, so let's do the grand review of everything that's happened. Okay. August 13th, 2022. We have this happen. Actually, let me pull up this map. We have a meteor that goes over the Salt Lake metro area, mostly the Salt Lake and Ogden metro areas, just north of Salt Lake City, along this line right here, this arrow. and it caused a really loud explosion. So large that, according to this map, I don't know if these were like viewers or viewers slash hearers of the explosion. You have like a guy down here all the way in Moab. I feel like I doubt that, but anyway, uh, it affected a large area. There were a lot of people that witnessed it, that heard it. Okay, and August 13th, someone pointed out during a live stream. August 13th. That's 813. 8 for August, 13 for the day. 813. Um, this seems to be possibly related to this, which happened on 318, 2 years ago. 318, 813. This is a symbol of quietness, dropping the trumpet, right? This seems like quietness. And this is loudness. It was really loud. Okay, mere dates. If you're ignoring just the year and just looking at the month and the day, mere dates. This happened, and then 2 days later, the call for missionaries to come back home was put out by the first presidency just 2 days after this happened. And then this year, okay, just a few months before this happened, in General Conference, they do a big call out for missionaries. Okay? It seems like both events are related to missionaries and the missionary work. And especially when we think about what President Nelson and Elder Bednar have said about being in the bottom of the ninth inning and that we're up to bat. I think that we're kind of at the end here. And I think that these two events are related to the missionary work. All right, so you have this happen on that day. It's a mere date. It has to do with missionaries, it would seem. I'm not going to declare it, but to me, it kind of seems like it's related. The day before was Tu B'Av, which is a day that's popular for Jews to get married. Marriage is a symbol of the second coming. The day of the meteor, over where the church headquarters is, okay? Not saying that it literally went over the church office building or the Salt Lake Temple, but over the general area. On that same day is Shabbat Nachamu, and just as a reminder, it is the first of 7 haftarahs of consolation leading up to the holiday of Rosh Hashana. That's the day that the meteor happened over church headquarters. A 7 haftarah countdown to Rosh Hashana. Okay, and then on the 5th of September, exactly 3 weeks before Rosh Hashana, a huge explosion on the sun. The sun just produced an explosion so big it will be studied for years. Thankfully, it was facing away from the Earth, okay? But this really big event happened. It says, the September 5th explosion was so big that quote, science papers will be studying this for years. I can safely say that the September 5th event is one of the largest, if not the largest, solar energetic particle, SEP storms that we have seen so far since Solar Orbiter launched in 2020. All right. So this happened 3 weeks before Rosh Hashanah. 3 days later, the Queen of England dies. She was the longest ruling monarch of England and the second longest ruling monarch of the entire world. The only one that ruled longer was Louis the 14th of France, but it was because he was coronated at a much younger age. So really, for all intents and purposes, I feel like she holds the number one spot because she was coronated at a later age. She wasn't like a baby or a toddler when she was coronated. She passes away, okay, and the very next day, the longest living apostle and prophet of this dispensation becomes the longest living apostle and prophet. The very next day, Russell Russell M. Nelson has his birthday. The very next day. The imagery there, to me, is that you have this worldly um, changing of the guard, or you have this worldly uh, reign that has reigned for so long come to an end, right? And then the next day you have this prophet of God that's still living, and he's broken his own record, and he seems to still be going strong as far as I can tell. The other interesting thing about it is that for the first time that any of us can remember, there's going to be a king of England, king of the UK. Everyone has the imagery of king on the brain, right? As we're waiting for the King of Kings to come. And he'll be coronated king at Adamonde. That's the official event where he assumes the kingship of the earth. A day after President Nelson's birthday, we have the largest earthquake of the year right here. Let me zoom in. This is my tracker that I use for my other channel. Watch for the signs. It was the largest earthquake in Papua New Guinea history, and it was the largest one for the year. And then we have a twin earthquake that ties for largest of the year 9 days later on the 19th, which is exactly 1 week before Rosh Hashana. Okay. Okay, and then we have Jupiter that's going to be at its closest starting the night of the 25th, which is the beginning of Rosh Hashanah, and into Rosh Hashanah. And at the same time, we have this crazy war that I never thought was possible between the Ukraine and Russia, and they're going to be having a referendum to annex 4 regions of Ukraine, and that vote, that referendum vote, is going to end on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. That's like the last day of the vote. All right. Also, okay, how am I going to do this? I just remembered this just now. Okay, I'm going to pull up another window that you guys can't see. Give me just 1 second. Somebody sent me an email of something interesting that the church did. It's right here. Okay, let me pull it up here. Hopefully this works. Okay. Now, this article is gone now. Okay. It's been taken down. But this was on the church website, and it's called, the title of this article was "The Trumpets Shall Sound." Excuse me. August 26th, 2022. The Gabriel Trumpet Ensemble will present an evening of music featuring everything from hymns to fanfares in ... The trumpets shall sound. Now, if you don't know why that would be significant, it's because the other name for Rosh Hashanah is the Feast of Trumpets. This is the day that they blow the shofar to remind everybody, hey, it's time, and to get ready for Yom Kippur, which is the holiest day of the year. So the church was doing that. What day was it again? It was August 26th. What day was that? It was over here. Okay, I don't see anything special about that date. Other than, well, no, there's nothing special about it. Okay, so there you have it. You know, what do you make of it? You know, do you think that this is all just crazy? Maybe it is. Maybe it's all just coincidence, but maybe not. Maybe not. By the way, the person that shared that with me, the trumpet thing, the trumpets shall sound, it's Paradise Today, and on YouTube, they show up as me Joe, MI space JO, me Joe. All right, so I mean, that's all I have for you for this one. just add 2 more things to the list. I'm not going to say that anything's going to happen on Rosh Hashanah. I'm just saying that a lot of things are pointing to this Rosh Hashanah, which in reality, it may not be pointing to this day so much as it is the next year, for all anybody knows, because this represents the end of the Shemitah and the beginning of the Sunday of years. So it could just be pointing to the next year. And then the same week as Rosh Hashanah, we have General Conference, which will be on Saturday, October 1st. So interesting things. All right, that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.